This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Get your tickets now for the Dog Stars.
It's no surprise how fast civilization can disappear. Go! Out there, it's kill or be killed.
Jacob Elordi.
There are people out there.
They need our help.
Josh Brolin.
Shoot first and inquire afterwards.
Margaret Qualley.
Ow!
Okay, tough guy.
And Guy Pearce.
Arm up!
The Dog Stars, directed by Ridley Scott, in theaters August 28th. Get tickets now. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parents.
Running a small business means I wear lots of hats. When I put on my hiring hat, I can count on LinkedIn Hiring Pro to make it easy. LinkedIn Hiring Pro helps manage my hiring workflow, puts my job post in front of a unique network of professionals, and matches me with the best candidates for my business. I can also share my job with my network. No other job site lets me do that. No wonder most small businesses say they'd use LinkedIn Hiring Pro again. Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
Welcome to the World of Martial Arts TV. Today we talk to James Bishop, author extraordinaire, especially on my favourite subject of Bruce Lee and other things. So, James, over to you quickly. Martial arts, Bruce Lee, which came first?
I was involved in Taekwondo and Okinawan karate when I was an adolescent and a teenager, but I didn't become involved in the world of Bruce Lee until probably 1993 when the Dragon, the Bruce Lee story came out.
Yep.
And when I saw that movie, I realized that there was something more to Bruce Lee than simply being an actor in martial arts movies. And I became very interested in the man's psychology and his philosophy in his mind. And I started doing a deep dive on that. And over time, I became a bit of an expert in that particular area and ended up doing some books on the subject.
This first book that you did, which was, if I remember, was you called it Dynamic Becoming. Can you tell us what your aims were when you were putting that book together? You say you had some sort of like insight into Bruce Lee, something different. Can you tell us what drove you to writing that book against the hundreds of other books that have come out since? Yours is quite special. Can you elaborate first on how you got there and B, what path that book takes us down?
First of all, that wasn't the first book I did on Bruce Lee.
Oh, right. So tell us about the first book you did on Bruce.
Remembering Bruce, I did in 1999.
Okay.
And that was an exploration of his legacy and the inspiration that he provided for other people. And then a few years ago, I did an updated version of that book. It's called Remembering Bruce Lee. But the Dynamic Becoming book I published in 2004. And that book is more concentrated on the philosophy and on his writings. And that was the culmination of the efforts I had been engaged in pretty much for the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s to study his writings, to gain a better understanding of his philosophical mind, and to share what I learned from that with people. And it also served as a compilation of my various articles I had written on Bruce, plus some new material. So it was sort of a collected edition. And I did that. I designed it kind of following the way that Carl Rogers designed his book on Becoming a Person, which itself was a collection of essays and speeches that he gave. So structurally, I kind of designed it that way.
What did you feel you were giving to the people that other books weren't giving in Dynamic Becoming?
Right. So foremost, I was hoping I was giving people a look at the philosophical side of him that perhaps the average Bruce Lee book didn't give. And the only other book really covering that on the market at the time was John Little's Warrior Within book, right? But secondary to that, I was using my writing on Bruce to actually kind of backdoor educate people on subjects that they may not have been familiar with. So things like the psychology of self-actualization, um, things like I even tied in the sort of the history of Christianity and how it parallels somewhat the history of Bruce's Jeet Kune Do, because like Jesus, Bruce died about the same age and left a small group of people to carry on his teachings. Mm. So I was able to show some people that there are some parallels to be found in both those stories, without deifying the man, of course. Mm. So a lot of it was the intention to educate people and maybe get them interested in aspects of psychology and philosophy through Bruce Lee that they may not have taken interest in before.
Mm-hmm. You spoke about John Little. At what time did you, because you became very friendly with John Little, as I did. At what point did you get start talking to John, do you feel? Was it before or after Dynamic Becoming?
So it was around late 1998, I would say. I was preparing my first book, Remembering Bruce, and I wanted to do an interview with him. So we arranged an interview, and we got to talking after that. We started corresponding. And then I attended the Seattle conference in spring of 1999, at which point John and I, were able to introduce ourselves face to face. And we got along very well. We had very similar interests, and we started to become collaborators.
Why do you feel that it's important that this side of Bruce Lee, not that I like to keep to sides, I like it as a totality, but why do you feel that this is it's important to point this out when instead of just going down the celebrity route of Bruce being in movies?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to understand the whole person, like you do, right? To understand him in all the various facets of his life and his personality. But also, I think that his philosophy that he espoused has applications beyond the martial arts, that there are people who can benefit from it that maybe aren't interested in the martial art aspect of it, but they can get something from Bruce Lee. And, I'm appealing to the martial artists as well. They're already the captured audience, but I'm trying to engage the audience that, might be fans of Bruce Lee, but aren't necessarily martial artists. They can get something out of it through his philosophy.
You basically went on and you did a fantastic book called Who Wrote the Tao? Because we all know that the Tao of Jeet Kune Do was just Bruce's notes. Mm-hmm. And just they gathered them all together, and he'd got them into different sections and different volumes, and then somebody put them together. And, it became a bit of a Bible, but I'd like your opinion on the Tao, because you have written this book about who wrote the Tao. So can you explain where you were going with that and the book? Because I think it's an excellent book.
First of all, we've known for some time that the book is notes, but we haven't known how much of it was Bruce Lee and how much of it wasn't, right? And no one had at this point gone systematically through the book and done a sort of a sort of academic research on it to determine what are the sources of the book. So that's the thing that I undertook, and I spent, of course, preceding this, I had spent 2 decades identifying the books that Bruce Lee owned. So that was critical to my process, right? So I knew what books to look through. And what I did was I treated it like I'm a social scientist. I do research. I treated it like any other research project. I gathered data. And in this sense was I found those books and I scanned those books and I digitized them. And I created a huge database out of them. And then I ran queries against that database on certain passages to see what would hit. And so through that process, I was able to identify that approximately 85% of the book did not originate with Bruce Lee. And that's the book as it was published. Now, since then, I've identified, I would probably guess, another 4 to 5% more. So I think the number is closer to 89, 90%. And at some point, I'll do a revision of the book and add those to it. But I think the importance of this is it gives people an understanding of where these things come from. It doesn't invalidate the Tao of Jeet Kune Do necessarily. Certainly, Bruce wasn't the true author of it, as I've shown. But it does a remarkable job of showing the philosophy behind Bruce's Jeet Kune Do and some of the techniques, and it still has value. But now you have this secondary source that can help you as well, because now when you look at that passage, you can look at my book, Who Wrote the Tao, and see where that passage came from, and that can possibly lead you to further research. You know, the Tao Jeet Kune Do was just snippets. Right? You can now find these authors, and you can do a better look at what they were producing, and see if there's more to gather from that.
When you're doing this book, and I'm just going a bit off piste here, I saw Bruce Wood, and I've seen John Little do it, and I suppose you do it. When you actually get a book, you highlight certain sections as you go it down. Can you explain to a watching audience what you're doing and why?
So as you read through a book, you find a passage that you feel has particular value to you or is important to whatever research you're doing. You know, you make a note of that passage. I like to highlight, and sometimes I'll write notes in it. And frankly, Bruce Lee kind of taught me to do that. Seeing how he highlighted and how he wrote in the margins of the book. And that helps you. And later you can go back and gather that information together and distill it down to what you need. So that's the value in doing that. And I impress upon everybody who's doing research to do that as well, right? Treat those books as if they're your books, and they're always going to be your books, and mark them up, write on them. You know, make your impression upon those books.
And when you're doing that, what are you self-evaluating something for your own sort of self-actualization?
It depends on the reason I'm reading the book, right? If I'm reading it for my own self-development, yes, I'll highlight it based on that. But if I'm reading the book because I'm conducting research and I've come across something that contributes to my research, then I will note that.
Taking it again in another angle, can you explain in a fantastic way, and I'm sure I've been wanting to ask you this question. Everybody looks at Bruce Lee on the cinema and the TV and stuff like that. But what do you feel about this guy, this Chinese American guy that did this and has brought us to talking about this stuff? What do you feel about it, and how valued do you feel that is?
I can't underestimate the value it is to me personally. I mean, he set me on my path of self-development, even my education. I credit him somewhat for my doctorate in educational psychology. I study gifted people. That's my field of research. And I would not have come across that or done that had not I been interested in the giftedness of Bruce Lee. So he inspired me in that way. But for in general, for people, he represents the ability of one single human being to maximize himself. And he should be an inspiration for others for that very reason. I mean, not just in the physical. We always knew about the physical, and he was a marvel there. But we have to understand, too, that in the psychological, in the intellectual, that he was a man to be respected and a man to be looked at and gather, ideas about our own self-development just by the way that he developed himself.
You've met a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of them have passed now, Bruce Lee's original students. Did you find out when you were doing research, as presumably you talked to some of them, I've noticed, that Bruce tried to do that with them? He was helping each of them individually.
Yes, and certainly Taki Kimura was the most obvious one, right? Because he literally found that man after World War II, Japanese American, who had been interned and lost everything in World War II in the U.S., and who had lost his sense of dignity. And he took him under his wing and, taught him to take pride in himself, taught him to be self-confident again. So certainly, that's true with Taki, but also with others like Ted Wong, I can think of offhand. Dan Inosanto, I don't think he had self-confidence issues, but he was, Bruce was a huge influence on him, shifted the direction of his martial art training significantly. And I think a lot of the others were there because they needed something that Bruce could provide to them. And it wasn't always martial arts. Martial arts was just a vehicle. But I think for a lot of them, it was more about their own growth, their own healing that they had to do. That's the sort of thing that Bruce gave to people that were in his orbit.
You've touched on a book that's I've only just had it a few months really. I apologise. But remembering Bruce Lee, I didn't get the first version, or did I? I might have the first version, but you've done a revamp of that version. What is the difference between the first version and this? I think it's 25th anniversary version. What is the differences, and what value has that given, and where did you get the inspiration to do that?
Well, the inspiration came because the book was approaching its 25th anniversary. And, it had been out of print for a while. And I just thought, people ask me about it and it's not available anymore. So I'm just going to make it available, and I'll take this opportunity. And I updated it based on the knowledge that we've gained in 25 years. I've interviewed some new people and added that to the book. Just made it a more modern book, and the quality of the book too. I took advantage of much better printing technology than was available at the time to make sure that this book shined. Yeah,
good. So basically, just moving on, a little bit about yourself now. We've both of us have had a bit of a jerky career, but you had a lovely time with the Bruce Lee Educational Foundation. Can you tell us your involvement with that and what you did at that time?
Well, I became a collaborator with the Bruce Lee Educational Foundation after I met John Little, and I contributed, I think, 5 articles to their magazine, usually on issues of philosophy. But I also contributed to a historic lecture series we did in Northern Ireland, where we went to Belfast and we went to Dublin and lectured on Bruce Lee's philosophy on behalf of the Bruce Lee Educational Foundation at Queen's University and Trinity College, which had never been done before, in terms of Bruce Lee. So we covered some new ground, and we made a little bit of history in the doing of that. Yeah.
So basically now, where do you feel your vision lies now? And are we looking for a new vehicle, seeing as there is no Bruce Lee Educational Foundation now? And it has gone more into the media side a little bit again. And there's us as a large band of people, especially on some of the martial arts side, looking into this sort of thing. Where do you think the direction is now? How we can influence people to look at things that Bruce Lee, especially your books and other things like that? Is there a direction we can go in, or have you got a vision, or have you got another book, do you feel?
Actually, I have a few more books to go. Yes.
Great.
Right now, I'm working on a podcast that I'm going to release probably later this year, which I'm really excited about because it's a sort of a narrative podcast that takes a lot of the interviews I've done since the 1990s and new interviews, and I think people are going to like it. I'm also doing, my next book is going to be on Bruce Lee's library, so I'm going to reveal all of the books that Bruce Lee possessed. Wow. I have now completed my research on that, and I have a complete list of the books that he owned. I think I have probably the most comprehensive list because I came through that 2 ways, through decades of researching his writings and sort of recognizing what books they came from. So that gave me a sense. But also I have managed to get a copy of the estates list from 1992 before the auction, where they auctioned off a lot of Bruce Lee's materials. So I have, combining those two, probably the most complete list in the world. And so I'm going to provide that in a nice book where I talk about every book in his collection, and give some insights and some trivia, and I hope it's going to be of value to the Bruce Lee fan. Yeah,
definitely. And so basically, the podcast. How will people learn to get onto the podcast? How are you going to sort of let us know about that?
Well, I'll let people know through social media.
Yeah.
I'll probably appear on some other podcasts to promote it. I think Dwight Woods has already asked me to be on his podcast when it comes out. And it will be on, where you regularly find podcasts. So.
Okay. Not wishing, as Will says, to sort of like get involved into politics and this and that and the other. How do you feel about the direction of Bruce Lee at the moment? I mean, it can all change one way or other, and there is us digging away at this sort of like looking at Bruce as a conduit, which is a useful tool for your own self-help and things like that. Instead of this, what do you feel of this collecting scenario? I just like your opinion.
Collecting's not for me. I look at him academically, I look at him intellectually, but I have no problem with people who are collectors. If that's their passion, if that's their joy, providing they're doing it in a healthy manner, not spending the grocery money on their collection, right? But if they can afford to do that, good for them.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I don't think there's much unless you've got something else you'd like to reveal to us. Have you got anything else?
You want me to reveal something?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay. For the past, in my book, Who Wrote the Tao, I wrote a chapter about a man named Joseph Snyder.
Oh, yeah.
Who in 1975 got one of the early copies of the Tao of Jeet Kune Do and immediately recognized that some of the passages weren't originating from Bruce Lee. And then he started doing a deep dive on this. Very amazing. Let me tell you this. Joe Snyder, he had bought Hazlitt's boxing book in World War II. Was not a boxer, but just had a little bit of an interest. Had read it then. 3 decades later, he picks up Bruce Lee's books, Tao of Jeet Kune Do, opens it up, and immediately recognizes a passage from Hazlitt's book.
Wow.
For a man who hadn't read that in 3 decades, that says something about his keen mind, right?
Mm-hmm. But
anyway, Joe Snyder, he went on this hunt for the answers to what was in the Tao. He initially met with some appreciation from the Bruce Lee estate and the estate's lawyer, Adrian Marshall. But as he started finding more, he found the door shut on him, and in fact got discouraged, and I'll say that politely, from continuing his efforts. But he had written a manuscript, he had written a book that he was trying to get published, and all the forces seemed to be against him at the time, and there was some threats made to him that forced him to drop the whole subject around 1983. Mm-hmm. And so he went silent, and we never heard anything back from him again, and that book never got published. And he became a big mystery. Well, I've unsealed the mystery. For the past 2 years, I've been trying to find his heirs, and I found his daughter. And as of this weekend, because I went out of state to meet with her and go through her archives, I have his manuscript and a lot of correspondence, and I'm going to help her get the manuscript published.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
So this book that has been sitting on the shelf for 4 decades now is finally going to see the light of day.
Fantastic, James. Absolutely lovely. Fantastic. So I'm going to leave it there. I want to come and do another interview as soon as you get your podcast ready, and let's do something with the podcast. Let's keep this open. Like, this is not a sort of like one all we're sure. We're going to keep coming back to you, James, because we love you. Well, I do anyway.
I'm always willing to talk to you.
And I think what you've got is critical. And I think what we're going to do is look at certain aspects of what you've covered and come in and do a more an in-depth interview on certain aspects of things, if that's okay with you.
I'd love it.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we're going to wind it up there. I'm going to say thank you so much for that. Thank you for the reveal. I can't wait for the book, so I'm waiting for that now. Please keep going, and we're behind you 200%. So, James, thank you so much for the interview. It's been very, very revealing in more ways than one. Can't wait to talk to you again. And thank you so much once more from the World of Martial Arts TV.
Thank you, Andrew. It's always a pleasure talking to you too.